I think the relegation battle in League Two is shaping up to be a really intriguing one from an outside perspective because a few weeks ago I would have maybe considered Cheltenham Town performance-wise to be the worst team in League Two, or certainly one of them, and now they're up to the heady heights of 15th thanks to finding a formula, and I think that shows that any team is capable of doing that. Once they find a formula that can get them some results, they can climb the table quite quickly, and I think that the League Two table does allow for that flexibility. And I look at a side like Morecambe, who are bottom of the league at the moment. I spoke to the Notts County manager yesterday, Stuart Maynard, who said, Morecambe are one of the toughest fixtures that they've had this season. So it just shows you how much scope there is for fluctuation in that kind of bottom nine of the table. And it's an area that I'm really looking forward to deep diving into in this League Two podcast. Yes, welcome along to EFL Debate. Do subscribe to us on YouTube and on Spotify, because that would help us out an awful lot if you could do that favour for me. But for now, I'm delighted to be joined by Ryan from Up the U's, the YouTube channel on Colchester United. Thank you so much for joining me, Ryan. We're also joined by Daniel Nice, who's a Doncaster Ravers fan. So not expecting to hear too much about Doncaster Ravers this evening, luckily, because you're at the right end of the table. But while we've got you, Daniel, I will ask you, how hopeful are you feeling about Donny's promotion chances?
Yeah, I think we've started the season pretty well. I know there's high expectations, and I think everyone was looking at us at the start of the season as being sort of right at the top, but it very rarely sort of works that way. And I think we've kind of developed a different side to us this year. Our teams are coming and setting up to try and make it really difficult for us, and we're having to try and find a way around that. So yeah, I think the fact we're coming from behind and getting some results, we're showing sort of resilience and character as well, which probably not traits you'd necessarily associate with us in the last couple of years. So we can obviously be a good side on our day, but I think it's actually positive that we've shown that other side to our game. And I think with a deep squad and potential to recruit again in January, we can only really get better in terms of, not just the performances. I think it's just been that, like most teams will probably say, that last bit, isn't it? Putting the ball away and making life a bit easier for yourselves.
Well, luckily you've got a striker in Billy Sharp who's scored a few of those goals over the years, so I'm sure it's clear that that's been a help for you as well. Best luck to Doncaster Rovers in terms of the promotion race. We're here mainly to discuss the League Two relegation battle, Daniel. So thank you so much for agreeing to give your kind of outside perspective as a Doncaster Rovers fan. You don't have a dog in this fight, hopefully. What are there teams that you've seen purely based? I'm only asking you to sort of base this on teams that you've seen play Doncaster. Which are the teams that you think they're a little bit better than their league position suggests based on their performance against Donny, and which are the sides that you feel like you're a bit worried about?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because like you said at the start, I think up to a couple of weeks ago, Cheltenham looked like they were capable of slipping into trouble. We haven't played them yet, but obviously with the new TV deal, I've seen quite a bit of a few teams, and they were one, and perhaps Accrington as well up to a short while ago. But I've seen like Accrington a few times recently and think, I mean, how they didn't win last night, I'm not sure, but I actually thought had they won last night, you're suddenly looking and thinking they could end up, I'm not saying no challenge all the way through, but suddenly you're looking up and looking at the playoffs rather than a relegation battle.
Yeah,
there's a few things of Accrington I've seen, of like the old Accrington, as I'd call them, but probably the most surprising team I've seen down there, and we've got them this Saturday, is Carlisle. I know they've had a bit of a terrible season, but you look at their squad, they've obviously got Mike Williamson in now, and again, I've seen them a couple of times. I've probably seen the only times they've won this season, but they've won both times I've seen them. And okay, they've not been particularly pretty on the eye, but I mean, they look a team on paper that they should be challenging at the other end. So
Mm.
I'm surprised a bit about them, but I think everyone else, I think you're right. There's a case for saying, you look at over Christmas, there's a lot of games, isn't there? You could see teams winning a couple and moving up, but you could also see teams, I'm just looking at the table at the minute. I think you could
Sure.
probably go as far as Newport and
Mm.
say any of those teams, and even a couple above, could even sort of get sucked into it.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, we'll come on to Colchester United in a moment, but from a kind of broadened perspective, based on the teams that you've seen play the EU so far this season, which are the teams that you'd be, well, same question to you, really, which are the teams that you're really worried about, and which are the teams think, oh, yeah, they're a little bit better than the table might suggest?
Yeah, to be honest, like what Daniel said, I think Carlisle is a bit of a shock in how they're performing at the moment. Obviously, I think I touched on it a couple of weeks ago when you had me on. They were a team that towards the end of last season, they sort of could see that they were going to go down. So they started to build their team for this season, and something just not quite worked out. Obviously, Mike Williamson come in. It was probably a bit of a shock to go from like a team that were odds-on favourites to be promoted to a team that were down the bottom of League Two. And we obviously played MK Dons towards the start of the season, beat them 3-0, and then they sort of started to pick up the results a little bit. So we were quite happy that we played them when we did. Then Mike Williamson left, went to Carlisle, and we then played. I think it was Mike Williamson's first. It was either his first game or his first away game, definitely, as Carlisle.
That was a dull. Was it a 0-0 or something like that?
0-0 or 1-1. I think it was 1-1.
Yeah.
But I know it was a draw because it was just like you say, it was a very dull game. But he'd only been in for a very short period of time. But you could already see the way that Carlisle was playing was very, very similar to the way MK Dons was playing. So he has his style, and obviously when the time he's come in, he's not going to be able to have the players that he wants in the positions. But it was a typical Mike Williams side that was very difficult to sort of play against, and to still see them sort of where they are. I mean, the last 5 games they've drawn, lost, won, and drew. I mean, Colchester isn't much better than that. We haven't won a game, but we've drawn 3 and lost 2. It's like Daniel said, over Christmas you put a little bit of a run together, you start to climb the table, and then you sort of that week you get a draw, the team below you gets a loss, and that's another point and another point. And when stuff starts to go your way, that's when you start to climb up. And I mean, last season Doncaster were prime examples. We were looking at them with us, Sutton and Forest Green in relegation, and then they shoot up the table, I believe you got into the playoffs, and then this season you've kept that form and you've kept going, and you're now sitting in third. So it goes to show that a few results, the right sort of tactics, the right style, shows exactly what you can do. And hopefully this season we can start to do what Doncaster done last year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's certainly going to be the plan. I suppose Morecambe are one of the teams that I'm a little bit worried about this season because they're bottom of the league. But at the same time, I've also watched them. I watched them against Newport back in August, and they played really well that day. They absolutely peppered them, especially in the second half. Spoke to the Notts County manager yesterday, who said they're one of the best teams that hardest games they've played. So there is a feeling that Morecambe aren't too far off, but they're kind of missing a little bit of quality in front of goal. So we're joined by Dave Salmon from DP Salmon to sort of speak about things for the Shrimps. Good evening, Dave. Thanks for making the time for us. Really appreciate you joining us.
Hello, gents. How you doing?
Is that the story for Morecambe at the moment, missing a little bit of quality in front of goal?
I think it's at both ends, to be honest. We've not got what you call an out-and-out goal scorer in the squad. We've not got a Cole Stockton or a Michael Mellon who you're guaranteed a volume of goals from them. We've got Marcus Dackers leading the line for us at the moment on loan from Salford. I love Marcus. He's a great footballer. 6'7", is a real handful for oppositions. Obviously, Ryan will know all about Marcus Dackers because he came off the bench and set up our dramatic equaliser against Colchester a few games ago. But he's played 13 games for us this season. He played 5 for Salford. That's 18 games in total, and he's not scored yet. unfortunately. And I think that tells the story. So if you've got something like that leading the line, that's where Morecambe's problem lies. You've seen us a few times, Gab, this season. We're not short of quality. And in most games, I would say we dominate teams with a better team for large spells. But it's just those fine moments. Our manager, Derek Adams, summed it up quite well a few weeks ago. He said, being better in the big moments at both ends of the pitch. And that's true. It's just scoring goals that is the problem. But it's also at the back as well. We've conceded a lot of late goals this season, goals in the last, in the 80th minute or later. I was having a little look through, and it's happened 7 times in the league this season where we've conceded a goal in the 80th minute or later. And it's cost us, depending on your point of view, anything between 7 and 11 points. So we could easily have double the number of points that we currently have. 10 points from 16 games in just 2 wins. It's not where Morecambe are as a team. And I'm not just saying that because I'm Morecambe biased. I see them every single week, home and away. I know where we're at. But unless we sort out conceding the late goals, that which is absolutely killing us at the moment. And we need to find a striker from somewhere. Where that somewhere is, I've no idea. So all hope isn't lost, but the table isn't pretty at the moment, that's for sure.
Not right now. We have a video contribution from Ben Cass from the Shrimps Trust. Here's what he had to say on all things shrimps.
Hiya, Gab. Yeah, I think this season has been exactly what you and I predicted it would be. I think the inability to forward plan come the end of last season has had a hugely detrimental effect on progress this year. It's had an effect on our ability to recruit the right type of player that falls correctly into a Derek Adams system, which ultimately is a low possession based approach, and usually has the ability to break, has the ability to be resolute with its low block, and a clinical approach up front, and we don't have that. So I think in terms of performances this season, the actual general performance has been okay for the level and if I could say standard of player, and I don't mean that as a derogatory term. I just mean as a general standard of who we've recruited. The players have stepped up and given their absolute utmost. However, we don't have, certainly up front, we don't have the ability to score every game, which if you take a step back and actually digest that, it's catastrophic to what you need in League Two. We have a good set of midfield players who, again, certainly the likes of Tom White, and certainly Callum Jones as well on loan from Hull. They have when they've been fit, have done really well and fulfilled their obligations. We have actually on paper quite a good, I would argue, back four. We've had George Ray out injured, but in terms of our centre backs, in Rhys Williams and Jamie Stott, there's actually there 2 very good centre backs, and the full backs as well. Have performed, amicably. So we are where we are. We don't have a lot to sing and shout about. We are at a point now, a really critical moment in not just the season, Gab. I'd argue we're at a position now where ultimately for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years of our future, in a position where if we don't recruit, I'd argue 5 to 6 players that bring in a level of improvement to our ability to win games, then we're really staring down the barrel. We're fortunate in the fact that we are still in touching distance. However, we haven't won a game all season at home. We have won 2 games away. And if we don't win a significant amount of our home matches in the new year, then we're in a lot of trouble. The ownership situation, just very briefly, is where it has always been, and that is Jason Whittingham has not been able to find a buyer that has passed the EFL tests. We still are in a position where he is claiming to have agreed terms. However, as we know, you can't necessarily fail the EFL tests. We're in a spot of limbo where the prospective buyers are still yet to provide the EFL with what they need to. And that's where we are for Morecambe Football Club.
Yeah, Ben Cass speaking there from the Shrimps Trust. Dave, does that sort of ring true for you that January is going to be a big month in terms of investment for the club if the ownership side of things does get resolved?
It all hinges on the ownership being resolved, really, Gab. And Ben is absolutely right. What happens in the next few months is going to see our path in the next 2, 3, 5 years or more. And the one thing that's absolutely essential is that by hook or by crook, we retain our EFL status, because if we don't, it would be very difficult in current circumstances to see how we could get back into the Football League if we were to drop out. I think, as I just mentioned before Ben came on, we have got plenty already in the building that can help us to retain our status, but we are short in the final third. There's no question about that. And we are making mistakes at the back that we shouldn't make. And those 2 areas are going to kill us. If the transfer window opens tomorrow, we couldn't recruit a single player. And that's not just because the owner's not putting any money in. There's other financial fair play rules and percentages of turnover and all that kind of stuff that means that we just couldn't recruit as it stands. So we need the ownership situation resolving. But as Ben said, and that was the whole reason why we had the protest before our game against Port Vale on Saturday, we are absolute deadlock, absolute stalemate. And it's hard to see a way out at the moment. As long as Jason Whittingham, the owner of the Morecambe Football Club, is resigned on trying to sell the club to a party who cannot pass the EFL test, we're always going to be in this position. Got no money. You wonder whether the bills and the wages are going to be paid month on month. And it has to change, because it will become, it already is unsustainable, and it will get to a point where the very nature or the very existence of the club is at risk. And that's very much the case at the moment.
Well, fingers crossed it does get resolved. Dave, thanks so much for making time for us this evening. And best luck. I'm sure I'll see you at a game soon.
We certainly will, Gab. All the best. And the rest of the panel, enjoy the rest of the pod.
Cheers. Take care, Dave. Delighted to be joined now by Ross Parkinson, who's a Carlisle United supporter from the Supporters Trust as well. Ross, thank you so much for joining us this evening. How are you feeling about Carlisle's chances, and has there been any improvement in recent games in terms of performance levels?
Better than I was 2 weeks ago, and massively, yes, to answer those 2 questions. It all sort of stemmed from the Wigan game in the FA Cup. Now, we got beat 2-0 in that game, but the players got a standing ovation off the pitch. I don't know if you saw the highlights. Ethan Robson got a debatable red card after about 15 minutes. And there's been a bit of a separation between the fans and the club and the players this season, in terms of we've been very quick as fans to turn on the players, because we've had 18 months of being pretty horrendous. And that kind of just galvanised everyone together. And I think the players realised that if they put a shift in like they did in that Wigan game, where we had 10 men for most of the thing and probably could have won it, let alone taking a draw out of it at 90 minutes. We took them to 120 minutes. And Sam Tickle, who is probably the best goalkeeper I've seen at Brunton Park in a long time, made 2 great saves to keep Wigan in it, really. But that spirit and determination has been carried into the wins at Salford. the win at Morecambe where we went one behind, and then into Bromley where we probably played the best of the Mike Williamson brand of football and should have won the game comfortably, really. We had almost 30 shots, I think, by the end, but just finishing's letting us down a bit at the moment. We seem to have solved the back line for the most part, and if we can start putting some chances away, I think we'll climb comfortably up the table.
Let's hope that's the case. Ryan, I suppose we were talking earlier about when Carlisle went to Colchester and it maybe wasn't the best game. So perhaps you're a bit apprehensive about them based on what you saw?
Yeah, like I say, Mike Williamson, he is a good manager. I think he is going to make it click. I think we've actually just lost Gabe. He's going to make it click, and I think it's possibly like us.
Yeah, he's saying hold the fort. We're all right.
Yeah, it's always good when you lose the host, isn't it? But yeah, no, I think you're like us. I think it's literally a matter of once it clicks, it's going to be quite interesting. Obviously, you're saying as well with the finishing is an issue. We're sort of in the exact same position. You've got your defense. It sounds like you got your defense sorted. We're still trying to work that out. We've got the sloppy goals. We've got the deflections. But yeah, I think that first game, like I say, it was Mike Williamson's first game in charge of you lot. You probably didn't really know whether he was going to come in first few games, play the same way you've been playing and carry that on, or straight away come in and go, no, we're playing my way. Since your game with us, have you looked like a much better side, or is it still sort of in limbo?
It's been a bit hit and miss. We've had some pretty horrendous performances in there, and Mike and us as a trust and the owners and everybody have come in for a bit of stick for the choices that we've made. But I think when Mike was brought in, it wasn't with the idea of he'll do this in 5 weeks and everything will be hunky dory. It was a long-term decision about this is a guy who is playing the kind of football we want to play. We've got him. I can't remember the last time we hired a manager who had a 50% win record, and we knew it would take time. Would I personally have liked it to have got a bit better? Yeah, of course I would. I'd like to win every game. I'll have to think that's how it goes. But for now, I think we're on the right track. We just need to start putting those chances away, and we've got what for League Two is a pretty difficult run coming up the next 4 or 5 games. But that said, it's League Two. Nobody's brilliant. Nobody's unbeatable. Nobody. It's not like you're going up and playing a City or a Liverpool where you can't make a single mistake. You're going to get chances, and potentially playing teams who will try and sort of go toe to toe with us passing the ball might be good for us, as opposed to teams who'll sit in.
Daniel, what have you made of Carlisle? I don't know if Doncaster have played them yet, have they?
Saturday.
It's this Saturday, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm slightly more anxious than I might have been a few weeks ago, because I think, it's a similar situation to us last season, I think, where we had to, you've almost got to you don't want to sink right to the bottom, but I think when your club's in a difficult place, sometimes you have to accept that, we got the right manager in, but when you're near the bottom of League Two, there's no magic formula, particularly how Mike Williamson wants to play. So it's literally going to be probably quite painful at times, but I think in the long term, this time next year, you could be where we are. Or, even later in the season, you might, if you get on a run and the goals start flowing, could do that. But yeah, I watched the game at Salford a couple of weeks ago, and it obviously wasn't a classic.
It wasn't a classic, no.
You just need to, not lose them games, but obviously to win as well was obviously massive. So I think, like I say, I've seen a couple of your game's on TV and you've won both. So I'm not going to watch on Saturday.
Yeah. If you want to make some easy money on Saturday, though, Jordan Gibson to score any time will be the most obvious bet of all time.
Daniel, just quickly, obviously, us and Carlisle, we're both, as we alluded to earlier, we're both in the position that Doncaster was in last season. What was it that sort of switched it around for Doncaster? Was it a January signing? Was it new tactics? Like, what was it that made you just go from just strength to strength to strength?
I think probably ultimately it was getting players back from injury and the January recruitment. But it was literally, I think, we scored with the last kick of the game at Sutton. So it was the worst, one of the worst games I've ever seen. It was 0-0, and we thought, well, that would do, because at least it kept us above Sutton. We then conceded about 20 minutes to go, and that last 20 minutes, you could see like the National League flashing before you almost. And for reasons unknown, the Sutton goalie decided to come miles off his line and punch the back of Joe Ironside's head rather than just standing where he was. And it was that windy. I don't think the ball barely reached the box. And we got the penalty. Ironside tucked it away. And I don't know, from that moment, it just seemed to, whether it was relief, whether we relaxed a little bit. I mean, McCann spoke about, before that game, not seeing it as a relegation battle and seeing it as the last 18 games. But we just seemed to go from strength to strength, and players like Adelican, Craig, Lota Tyler, the goalkeeper, and then getting Richard Wood back in defence. I still don't know how we did it, but that was I think if we'd have lost that game, I hate to think where we might have been. I think at best we'd be still possibly towards the bottom of this division. But it could have been worse, because I think it would have reduced the gap. And Sutton and Forest Green were just getting a little bit of form at that time. And I think if we'd have really been dragged into it, I don't know, we hadn't won for so long, but it seemed that point, and like I said, 96-minute penalty just seemed to, everything turned for the right reasons, which obviously I'm thankful for.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar, because we're getting hammered with injuries this year. We've got we've just picked up another one. Terrell Thomas went to St Lucia rather than going to Bromley on Saturday, which who can blame him? And he's come back with a hamstring injury. So I think we've got Jordan Jones out. We've got Georgie Kelly is apparently fit for Saturday.
Callum Guy being back is the big one, though, Ross, isn't it?
Massive. Yeah, he's comfortably a League One player. I think had he been fit all last season and we'd gone down, I think he would still be a League One player, because I think someone would have bought him. But I think he's not the Callum Guy of pre-injury. He's still coming back to fitness, but there's a couple of passes that I think one of the EFL accounts tweeted one of them on Saturday, where you can just sort of see the quality he's got, and makes a big difference.
Yeah, certainly does. Ross, thanks so much for joining us for your insight on Carlisle, and enjoy the rest of your evening, mate.
No bother. Enjoy, lads.
Top man. Cheers, Ross. Ryan, I wanted to ask you about Colchester United, because it was a bit of a late show for yourselves against Bradford last time out. JJ McDonnell with that 90+9 minute equaliser. You won't want to make a habit of leaving it that late, but can that moment be a springboard for Colchester United season?
I think if we leave it that late to score the winner, I'll take it every week. The emotion when that goal went in, once the game finished, I put my tweet out to give my thoughts, and the first thing I put was that was personal. Bradford came down, they had their game plan, they knew how they wanted to play if they went 1-0 up, and they knew that when we were playing, they knew we wanted to play fast football. When the ball went out, the ball boys were throwing it straight back on to be like, get the game going. And when Bradford got it, they were like, no, we're going to chill. I have no idea how the ref let it all happen. I'm just getting bored of talking about how bad the refs are in this league, but it was another absolute joke of a performance from the man in the middle. but yeah, like I say, the emotion around the ground was absolutely incredible. And the one thing that we struggled to do is we struggled to just build on the momentum. In the week we had Arsenal in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy. Yes, it was a very young Arsenal squad. I think the average age was like 17, but at the end of the day, it's Arsenal's academy. I think 3-4 years ago we played them, and I'm not sure if he's made it like higher up, but I think his name was Bukayo Saka and Emil Smith-Rowe played, and they both scored. Like, these are players that have the potential to go on and be world-class players. So it's not a thing to like throw away. A 3-0 win against an Arsenal academy is a good result, and on the night we played really, really well. And you could see going into the Bradford game, we were trying to build on that. And if we can just eradicate the defensive mistakes and the silly little deflections, again, Bradford's goal, it hit Lyle Taylor and then hit John Kamani Gordon, and then who does it fall to? Andy Cook.
Well, do you know what, Ryan? What I felt watching it was, I think you had something like 9 players in your own box, and it felt like a case of sort of bringing everyone right back. And I don't know sometimes if that's the best way to defend set pieces. I would always feel like you want to have a couple of players up the top end of the pitch. You want to have a couple of players on the edge of the box ready to close people down. And then you might have another 6 outfield players kind of defending the box. But I think if you go too far in the way of just everyone back, then it can you can almost invite pressure and create that kind of confusion whereby defenders don't know, players don't know who their responsibility is, because everyone's responsibility. It creates a bit of chaos.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the 18-yard box, it's not a massive area of the field. We have 9 players back. They have 9 players up. Plus the goalie, that's 19 players in a very, very small area. So a little deflection, who knows where it's going to go? And when you go back and you dissect the goal, yes, you could possibly say this could have been done to prevent it. This could have been done to prevent it. They played the corner short. Their player sort of done the run up to kick it in, and Jack Payne jumps in the air and the player just runs around him. So it's like, if Jack Payne didn't jump, then he could have made the block. If it hadn't have hit Taylor, or if Taylor sort of got more of his body behind it. There's so many like ifs, buts and maybes. But yeah, like having that many players in the box, we had it last season. I think there was one game where we had every single player back in the defending a corner, and I think we had 6 players in the 6-yard box, and we still conceded from a corner. And it was at that point, I was like, how are we conceding when we have everyone back? But then on the flip side, Matt Macy's 6'6", 6'7", something like that. He comes out, makes a high claim, and then goes to the edge of the box. Where is everyone? Oh, they're all behind me. And he's like, right, well, now just hold it. And you've got to find that middle, like you say, you've got to find that middle balance of having enough players in the right positions to go for the counter, but then having enough players back to defend. Because if we go, right, well, we'll put 4 defenders in the box, the opposition team isn't going to go, okay, well, we'll put 4 players up. They'll go, all right, fine, we'll put 6 up there. So you've got to find that middle ground. But yeah, it was, again, like I say, it deflected off Lyle Taylor, it deflected off John Kamani Gordon, and then standing all on his own on the penalty spot is the League 2 top goal scorer, Andy Cook, and he smashes it into the back of the net. And it was, again, it was one of them where we sat there and was like, another deflection has cost us a goal.
Have you placed Colchester yet, Daniel?
No, I think we go. It's over Christmas. I think it's
a
game between Boxing Day and New Year.
29th of December.
Yeah. So do you have a steer on where Colchester United are at then, Daniel? Because I suppose, were you surprised that they're sort of in that relegation battle with a manager like Danny Cowley in helm?
Yeah, I think the most surprising thing is it almost seems to be very similar to last season. I think obviously you picked up some wins towards the end, but I think, Cowley's very experienced, isn't he? And he went on that, if you can't win, don't get beat. And there was a lot of draws, and it seemed to like you're edging away from trouble. But then this year it's been very similar with, it can go one of 2 ways, can't it? If you suddenly turn 2 wins out of those draws, you start moving. If you lose a couple, it can go the other way. But I think how you've just explained that game probably sums up a lot of League Two from what I've seen it, which is I've watched quite a few neutral games where you can't really tell which team's near the top or which team's near the bottom. Whereas last season, if you played Stockport, Wrexham, Mansfield, MK Dons, they looked a different level, and they've obviously, most of them have gone on and done well at the higher level. But like you say, if something drops to Andy Cook, that's a difference. If something drops to Billy Sharp, that's a difference. Whereas teams at the bottom, you've got Lyle Taylor, haven't you? But like last season, it was Taylor, wasn't it? You had on loan who could snap up them chances. I think that is a difference in a lot of games. Something, we played Bradford and we're 2-0 up. We were playing really well. Cross on Andy Cook. The first time we didn't challenge him in the air, it's 2-1 and it was game back on. It's like, I know it's cliched, but it's that. And then it's if a chance falls to the opposition danger man. Like we played Salford last week, they missed a really good chance in the first half. If that goes in, it totally changes it, doesn't it? So I'm sure between a lot of teams, like Wimbledon and Accrington last night, I thought Accrington looked every bit as good, yet Wimbledon have got this really good home record. So I think there's very little between. Well, I think somebody I know was at the Morecambe Port Vale game last week and said you couldn't tell who was top and who was bottom, other than Port Vale nicked it right near the end, and that's probably why they're top.
Yeah, that's sort of why I wanted to pick your brain with what Doncaster did last year to see if you made the choice to go, do you know what, we'll get rid of the manager, we'll get a new manager in or new tactics. But we've got a few players that are out injured. We just had Awara Edwards come back from an injury. We've had Samson Tavide coming back into the team that was injured. Teddy Bishop is still out injured. We're not sure when he's going to be back. I think it was meant to be a very small injury, but it's turned into quite a big injury. But it's one of them things we're now sort of asked the question of, is Teddy Bishop that thing that we're missing in the midfield? Because when he's in, it maybe gives Jack Payne more license to roam about and sort of go where he wants. But yeah, I think I keep saying it. I think it will click and it will turn around. Like you say, obviously Billy Sharp, Andy Cook, Lyle Taylor, these are players that they know where the goal is. There's been goals this season that Lyle Taylor scored, and he scored them because of his knowledge and his experience. There was one game where he was just running at the goal, got inside the 18-yard box, cut it onto his left foot, and then just put it in the back of the net. And it was one of them that if it was any other player, they might have tried to take it on a little bit more or take the shot early. But Taylor knew exactly what he wanted to do. And I think if we can get Taylor just to remain as the central man, just like you say, the little fox in the box, I think he is going to be a big, big part of it. And yeah, Joe Taylor last year, if we didn't have Joe Taylor in, I think we would have been relegated. The goals he would score, I can't remember what game it was, but it was like 89th, 90th minute. We hadn't had a shot all game, and Owen Goodman just got the ball, booted it up there. Joe Taylor watched the bounce. It went over the player's head. His first touch, got it under control, put it in the back of the net, 1-1. And it was like, that's what we were missing. We were missing just that one to go, do you know what? I'll just score. Scored the goal, got us the equaliser. And it was just his goals that 100% kept us up last season.
Brilliant stuff. I think one thing I'm really excited about is Samson Tavide, because he produced that moment against Bradford, didn't he, where he just showed this incredible pace and power. And I just think if he can add that extra little bit in terms of end product, I think he can be something special. So I don't think he's too far off. So yeah, fingers crossed. Delighted to be joined now by Neil Hurst, fresh from Harrogate Town's 2-1 victory over Chesterfield. Neil, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you joining. I know you've had other commitments this evening, so thanks for taking the time. How important was that victory over Chesterfield after 3 straight defeats in the league?
Yeah, good evening everyone. It was a much welcomed victory. I think we've been going through a period of of very bang average games, and it was just a further example of Harrogate Town's erratic nature, in that you can beat teams towards the top, in the top half of the table, whether that's Bradford or Wrexham in the FA Cup. Chesterfield's another one, and you can really struggle against some of the teams you might expect to do better about. But in terms of timing, it was much needed. Thirsty for a victory, and got to confess, I was underwhelmed entirely by Chesterfield. I thought they'd be much better, and didn't think too much of them, to be honest.
Ryan, I think you've played Harrogate earlier in the season, and they did a bit of a job on you. I think they won 1-0 or 2-1 that day, but you were a bit unlucky maybe not to get more. What did were you impressed by the resolve Harrogate showed that day, or did you feel like they're a little bit fortunate to get 3 points?
I'm going to say this with the utmost respect, Neil, and to all of the Harrogate fans. When I see Colchester versus Harrogate, I sit there and go, because I know, especially away from home, it's going to be 4 at the back, 5 in midfield, 1 person up front, and it's going to be park the bus, hold out for the draw, and then there'll be 5 minutes where their manager will just he'll wave and go like that and go, yeah, should we have the 5 minutes? Yeah, all right. And then they just go bang and just attack you. And that's exactly what they done to us. It was 67 minutes of just, oh my God, this is a very boring game, because they're just sitting back and just holding out, and then they get their goal and they go, right, well, that's us done. We'll go back to what we were doing, because Colchester can't break it down. And it was one of them. It was at the end of the game, I sat there and I was like, do you know what? I really, really dislike playing against Harrogate, because it's one of them where we came away. I'm looking at the stats now. We had 63% possession. We had 24 shots, and we lost 1-0.
Sounds like a tactical masterclass. Sounds like a tactical masterclass from Weaver.
If you're Harrogate, tactical masterclass. If you're a Colchester fan, very boring game. But to be honest, if Colchester start doing that and we go away from home and we play like that, and then we come away with a 1-0 win, whether it was scored in the first minute, 67th minute, or the 90th minute, at the end of the day, you came down, you got the 3 points, you were the happier fan. So I applaud you, but tactical masterclass, boring football, you got the 3 points. So it doesn't matter what you call it. Win, what you call it.
I mean, I suppose I will come back to that. I think I've been to a fair few games this season where what you've said there will resonate with other fans from other clubs. There are times when we've played ultra conservative, dare I say, boring football at times, very defensive minded. There's always a pass backwards or sideways and infrequently forward looking. But I mean, cut to the chase, we need lots of 3 points to survive this season. We're going to be, or we're the bookies' favourite at the start of the season to go down. If that's what we've got to do to stay in the league, then so be it.
Absolutely, Daniel. You're another team that sort of fell victim to the Harrogate kind of smash and grab machine, if you like, because Doncaster went to Wetherby Road and maybe struggled with that organisation that Harrogate showed and the defensive resolve. So were you impressed with that as a Donny fan?
Yeah, if you played us every week, you'd win the league.
I was thinking that.
we lose every time, but I think it's a bit of a weird accusation. But because I always think of Harrogate being hardworking, honest, if you like, organised. You know what you're going to get, but they do seem to manage to raise the game against. I'm not saying we're a big club, but obviously in the derbies, beat Bradford, beat us, beat Chesterfield, beat Wrexham. And yeah, whether it's that home thing, but I look at all your other results and I go, they'll lose to Morecambe at home, they'll lose to someone else, but you'll come and you'll beat us 1-0 whenever we play you in the next game. But I think, to be fair, obviously Simon Weaver, born in Donny, I always keep an eye out for him because he's had a great sort of career, and I think he's always the sort of manager who's going to do what it takes to win and get enough points to survive. And then if you get on a bit of a run, like last season, I thought you might actually edge towards the playoffs at one point because you're just such a well-oiled machine. If you get on a bit of momentum, there's never that much in it. But yeah, the games against us are always painful, but you couldn't deny, like, you defended so well. You took your chance when it came, and then when you get 1-0 up in this league, it's so difficult, isn't it, to play against a team that defends really well. So, like, you have to. It's painful to watch as the opposition, but you have to, like, say, like that night, you couldn't argue. It's not on stats, is it? We had all the ball and all the shots, but you never really looked like conceding, and you were 2-0 up. So,
yeah,
you deserve to win because you won, if that makes sense.
No, it does. That's very gracious of you as well.
So, Neil, who would you say have been Harrogate's key players so far this season? Because for me, the one that's really stood out is Dean Cornelius, just with his, he doesn't stop running, does he?
Yeah, I think at the start of the season, the first few games, I would have answered that with Ellis Taylor, lad we got on a free from Sunderland. Really stood out, really forward looking, and kind of maybe the missing piece of the jigsaw we've been looking for. He's now unfortunately out. He's going to be out until early New Year at the least. So yeah, the player of late
is Matty Daly fit again? Sorry, Neil, to come into that sort of come into the mantle.
Matty Daly, who kind of normally plays the number 10 role, he's been injured for a good few weeks now. He was meant to start against Chesterfield, but he pulled up in the warm-up, so he got replaced. So again, I've got no more updates on him, but he wasn't available for the last game either. But to Dean Cornelius, he's fast becoming a fan favourite. I do remember calling him out when he signed for the club, when I saw him in a pre-season friendly, and saying he looked like a Rolls Royce of a player. I think that's probably a little bit unfair. He's gone from that graceful player to just all-out action hero. Up and down. As a Liverpool lad, in some respects, it reminds me of a Steven Gerrard. Just up and down the park, massive engine, just doesn't quit, doesn't give up. And of late, he's been playing further forward. Normally, Weaver plays with two holding midfielders. In the last game, Falkingham and Dooley played that role to allow him to go further forward. And he's the boy at the moment. He's the golden boy for sure.
Certainly is. I'm also. I thought central defence might be an area of possible vulnerability for you in, missing what I would have considered that kind of dominant presence. But actually, Jasper Moon has come in to partner Anthony O'Connor since the start of the season. And again, they seem to have a really strong pairing. And you've been lucky enough to keep both of them fit for most of the season so far. So I'm sure that continuity has helped you.
Really good acquisition. At the start of the season, I was worried about the central defensive area and the striking area. The central defensive area could have put that to bed. Jasper Moon's played, I want to say, every single game, every minute of every single game. Strong, a big physical presence with Rod McDonald going. I thought that might be a problem, the physicality. He's replaced that again. Absolutely wonderful. And at fullback, we're happy there as well. We've got some newness there in Zico. He's done well. Sims, who's certainly chipped in with a few goals and assists, he's looking good as well. The bit, and I know you've not asked this question implicitly, but the question of what worries me the most is more the other end, the striking end.
Yeah. I was going to come on to that now.
I'm sure you were going to.
And yeah, that's a really intriguing position for me because I think Josh March, forgive me, Josh, if I've got this wrong, but I think his record is something like 1 goal in 40 or 50 games. You've got, it might be a few less games than that, I'm not 100% sure, but it's one in something. And then there's Jack Muldoon and Sam Follerin, who I wouldn't really consider out-and-out strikers. You brought in Eno and Toe, who's got decent pedigree, having come through the academy at Derby, good football academy. Was without a club, so he's obviously got to get up to sharpness, but he did get off and running, didn't he, in the EFL Trophy. But that's an area there up top where you've got 4 players who could start up top, but none of them who you'd say are in a great position where you're going to be super confident in them, like we'd talk about in terms of the centre-back position or other areas of the squad.
Yeah, I mean, you've covered it perfectly there. There's a worry, there's a major worry, and I'll be very surprised in January where if we don't do something about that. I think it's majorly apparent to everybody. The lad we've just got in, he's on a month-to-month contract, and yes, he scored in the cup on his debut. March is second coming at Weatherby Road. Yeah, I don't know the stats either, but I can tell you for sure his goal scoring record has not been wonderful. I think there's a couple of other things I will say. The players who feed those strikers, I've already alluded to Ellis Taylor, he's injured. Matty Daly has been injured. So more worryingly, the people feeding those strikers, they're not around either. So we're going to have to think about this very carefully. The one positive, perhaps, is, and his name escapes me, he's an international player. He's a Scouser. He's been playing of late. That should be enough of a clue for you, Gab.
Well, what for Harrogate? Stephen Dooley.
Duke McKenna. I couldn't think of his name.
Stephen Duke McKenna. Sorry.
Stephen Duke McKenna. He again, he's not a striker per se. He literally plays in the number 9 share, but he's very forward looking. He might be able to do something. He's not always started the last few games, but he's been coming off the bench and he just looks a ray of light. He's definitely full of vim and vigor, and he's again another all-action hero. And coupled with the other Daly we have on the left wing, who's very quick, very rapid. There are ways, there are methods we can feed whichever striker we pick, which is most likely to be Muldoon. That if they're kept fit, they can feed him, and we can. And as the other two guys will attest, if we play in a more breakaway form of the game, we can cause teams troubles.
Certainly can. So Neil, are you pretty hopeful that Harrogate Town will beat the drop this season?
It's a bloody good question, and it's one I ask myself on a weekly basis. I've been a parents' evening, so I've not listened to anything that's gone before this. So my independent view is I'm still concerned, absolutely still concerned. Looking at some of the clubs around there, I would say as much as Port Vale have been the standout best team that I've seen this season, the worst one I've seen by a way was Newport County. I thought they looked pretty atrocious. I think again we didn't beat them. I thought Swindon didn't look too good either, and by virtue of a very late 1-0 defeat, Cheltenham, although they are kind of mid-table, I didn't fancy them much either.
I was at that game. I wasn't convinced by Cheltenham that day, even though they won.
Not convinced at all. So I think Carlisle might get out of it. I know they're second bottom, but I think their players are probably too good to be down there. And the manager needs time to assimilate and get those players going, which I'm sure he will do. I think Tranmere, I don't think they've got to worry. Bromley, perhaps, just due to the newness. Do I think we'll get out of it? I do, only possibly by virtue of the fact that we've got a manager who's proven he can do it, fight against the odds, and also I think there are worse clubs out there.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think January's going to hold a lot. I think need those 1 or 2 additions in January to get them right. If Irving can I know it's a time where you've got to kind of tighten the purse strings a little bit, and that's understandable. But if you can just bring in the right 1 or 2 players in January, I think that would make all the difference.
We've got all the FA Cup money. We're going to be absolutely wedged in no time at all.
Don't what's the word? Don't count your chickens before they're hatched. You've got games for Trinity in a week or 2, Neil.
I instantly regret it. I instantly regret saying that.
Brilliant stuff. Neil, thanks so much for joining us this evening, and thanks for taking the time. No
problem at all. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Delighted to be joined now by Ben Nichols from Fools Rush In. I'm not sure, in your lifetime as a Swindon Town fan, you'd expect to be doubted by a Harrogate Town fan. That's a new a new low for Swindon Town, perhaps. So I'm just wondering, so how are you feeling about Swindon Town's chances of beating the drop? Because at the moment, that's looking like what this season's going to be about, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually more confident under the new manager than I am under the previous. I know you've gone a little bit, but the performances actually have quite improved significantly from what we've had since the league. We've had 2 cup games which we've won. In all the games that we've played, we've gone 1 down, at least 1 down. And he's made changes, and he's made positive changes, and the subs that have come on with the amount of squad that we do have to our selection, which is also to our advantage, have affected the game and changed the game. Obviously, we had the Colchester game in the FA Cup. First half wasn't going too well. He changed formation, changed players in the second half. proactive, and we ended up winning the game 2-1. No, I think his one defeat came at Milton Keynes, where he went toe to toe away from them, and probably the hardest game that you can face, really, which is away at Milton Keynes. And I thought we played all right, to be quite honest. We gave them a few problems. They were slightly better than us, and they came away with the points. But we weren't too bad ourselves. And at the moment, 2-2 draw away at Accrington's not terrible with the form they're in at the minute.
Accrington Stanley did have chances in that game.
They did. The first 17 minutes, they were much the better team. For the last 20 minutes, they couldn't get out there after. Once we equalised, it was, we easily could have won it. So once they were going too hard, the first 70 minutes, they were much the better. But the last 20, the game turned over, and we've got a huge game on Saturday. Absolutely massive against Morecambe. 3 points in that one, and then we've got considerable distance with them. And he's got off to a semi-decent start, because it'll be like 1 defeat and 5 for him since he took over. So it's there. I quite like. We take the stupid latest news, which was taken way out of hand with ghosts and all that at the training ground, because that was a joke, and I think the press have got that and made a big thing out of it. Yeah, he's not blamed that on the poor form, but he actually, I do like the fact he's got plan A, B, and C. I like the fact that he is proactive in the way he makes his substitutions, and I like the fact actually that he tries to win games and can risk losing games to win games, as we did on Accrington on Tuesday, when we went to an incredible 4-2-4 for the last 15 minutes and just went all out for the win once we equalised. So he will do that, and if he does that, there's going to be games that we lose, but you get 3 points for a win. So I think only 1 for a draw. So it's a gamble worth taking in our position, because if we get 2 or 3 wins, it makes such a difference. So I think it's all right. I think the fans get behind him. He's definitely an improvement on the previous, and he's not, even though he's balmy, he's not as balmy as the one before. So I'm a little bit happier, though I'm still concerned. I'm still very concerned with 22nd. I don't want to sound overconfident, but I think we've got Cole U coming up after we've got Morecambe on the weekend. So we're in a huge spell, and then a massive January where I think there will be a bit of a reshuffle on players. I think we might use players like McGregor, and then see what players we can get in during January to plug other gaps and just keep in the league, and then hopefully the club is sold soon rather than later.
Yeah, it feels like January is going to dictate a lot for every club that we've talked about.
It's massive, absolutely massive. But it's our biggest one in the club's history, because if it goes wrong, we go out the league. So it's huge.
Daniel, have you played Swindon yet this season? What have you made of them?
Yeah, we played there fairly recently. It was a bit of an odd game, really. I didn't think Swindon played too badly. We won with a last-minute penalty in the end, but we scored. We looked relatively comfortable, but then conceded a bit of a soft goal. But I thought you could see what Mark Kennedy was trying to do, sort of in that game as a one-off. Ian Holloway, I actually many moons ago, I used to interview him a little bit, and to say he's old school to say the least, but he'd have had me believing I could fly to the moon on a dice. So I think if he can have that kind of effect on individuals, that might just give you a little sort of boost in these massive games coming up. But I think you've changed the manager so many times.
Yeah.
It's a risk. It's another risk, isn't it? I think. Yeah,
but take the Grimsby situation aside, which was a little bit different because he had no backing staff, no analysts and everything when there, and they were we had no budget to only bring in non-league players. But take Grimsby aside, his sort of positive attitude and springy, I thought would be quite useful in the club in our position, because obviously if you're a bit down on the dumps and things are going wrong, you've got troubles boardroom level, his ultra positivity and ability to pick a team up and motivate a team might prove vital going into like the run-in or big games like this one, because he's all about motivation, all about positivity. and he's been there and done that. So he's pretty clued up tactically. You know, he's not a dinosaur that we've seen in the past of previous experienced managers, where he will think out the box and he will make changes and he will go, I want to seize this game by the scruff of the neck and let's go at them, which I think is going to be good because our best assets are attacking, which Kennedy didn't really use. And defensively, I think we are going to be leaky. I think it's going to be leaky, to be quite honest, where we are. But I think we've got some good attacking units. So hopefully, I think his attitude is to score more than the opposition, which, again, hopefully, I just want to get to that 47, 50 point mark and then get the club sold as soon as possible because I'm surely it's coming to an end now. But that's all I want is to that my bar is so low, just survive and sell the club. That's all I want. All I want. That's how low my bar is.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that sale does happen for you. One ray of light, we might say, for Swindon Town this season has been McGregor, because he's actually been picked up on by opposition managers sometimes. I think Michael Flynn, as Cheltenham manager, spoke highly of him. Is he somebody that gives you some excitement at Swindon?
Yeah, the fans adore him, but we're also quite expectant to cash in on him because there will be offers for him on the table because he's just turned 18. He's plays every week. He's scored 3 goals this season already. Top assist, another beautiful cross for Smith's first goal. He's a big shining beacon at the moment. He's such a good player, and he'd be worth a few quid as well because he's under contract. One of his teammates, Hunt, was sold to Middlesbrough for a decent wedge in the summer, which I think paid for the budget this season. And I think January, there's going to have to be reshuffles, there's going to have to be players moved on, and we're going to have to do something to stay in this league. And I think 1 or 2 might be sacrificed, and I think there's going to be offers for McGregor, and I can't see Swindon turning him many down, to be honest. So, enjoy him whilst he's here, and then he'll be off in January. So it's just what it's like in bottom league too. It is once a player shines and you're in desperate, then you know. Apparently we're at the budget limit already, so something's got to happen for us to improve.
Well, hopefully McGregor can bring a bit of fight between now and then. Do you think you'll stay up then, Ben?
Right now, I'm hopeful with the squad size and the quality that we've got. The answer will be yes. Right now, I'm not going to say, absolutely, it's going to be, because it's not, because I know we've got a fight on hands. I think Holloway has now come around to thinking of where we are. I think the ownership has still got their heads in the clouds and up their arses thinking that the P word's still available. That's not going to happen. We're not going to do like anything new, but I don't think they're on the right planet at all. But I think we're all geared up for a battle. I think Holloway's geared up for the battle, and I think I think we'll just about have enough. But I don't think we'll survive another year under the current ownership. So if we do survive this year and things stay the same, then the next year we're doomed.
Yeah, I agree with that. So hopefully there can be off-field change while the club stays in the same division. Ben, thanks so much for joining us from the Fools Rush In podcast. Thanks to Ryan from Up the U's. Get subscribed to it on YouTube. Thanks to Daniel Nice of Doncaster Rovers. Thanks to all my guests. Thanks to you for watching at home. This has been the EFL Debate League 2 podcast. Get subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify because that would help us out an awful lot. And we'll see you again very soon.